Welcome to the Space Marketing Podcast, where we look at marketing principles, strategies, and tactics through the lens of space. Hi, I am your host, Izzy House, and I am so excited to share this journey with you as we explore the different space industries. On this episode, we will look at the space marketing segment and chat with Nat Brown-Lennox about building a small marketing team for a space startup. Liftoff in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Space Marketing Podcast. Information relating to our discussion today and links to the video version can be found in the episode show notes on spacemarketingpodcast.com. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. It will help more people reach beyond the atmosphere. Information in this episode is for entertainment and information only. Please consult a professional for your specific situation. Our next guest is Nat Brown-Lennox. She is a brand and marketing leader with over 18 years of global experience in multiple sectors, including space, which means she probably started when she was 8. Her resume includes B2B, B2B2C, and B2C experience across several industries, including tech, finance, fintech, cybersecurity, professional services, and aerospace. Nat has worked with some of the world's most recognizable brands, launched startups, grown fast-paced companies, worked for Fortune 100 organizations, and grown multiple brands to acquisition or IPOs. And here's my favorite part of her bio. Nat values a genuine connection and leading with integrity to create healthy, productive teams. She was on my marketing panel that I moderated this past spring at the Space Tourism Conference, and there is no BS about her marketing strategies. Welcome to the podcast, Nat. How are you?
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I forgot to ask if anyone can see me on this thing. Can they see me or just hear me?
It will be video too.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, well, I should have, I did Barry's boot camp this morning, so I have nice fuzzy hair for everyone, but that's all right.
That'll work. That's a good reason to have it.
Yeah, it's good morning. I actually commute from the bottom of Orange County all the way up to LA twice a week now for work.
Oh.
So yeah, so I
Wow.
get in time for a Barry's boot camp and make it all worth my while, which is good.
You gotta love remote.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I like hybrid a lot.
Yes, you get a little bit of people and you get a little bit of home. So it works. You have a reason to buy clothes.
I can always find a reason. Don't tempt me, Izzy.
Okay, I want to start us off by defining what marketing is, because many people don't realize what marketing is. They think it's just sales. So the American Marketing Association definition is: marketing is the activity, set of institutions, the processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value to customers, clients, partners, and society at large. Basically, it is everything that your brand does. It is everything from your staff's mood to your website. It is the personality of your brand and the messages you send into the world. It is everything that your brand does to make it exist in the world of your audience. So, and I know Nat agrees with me on that. So the last time we met, you had just finished rebranding a space company. So what is new in your world?
Okay. All right. Just to back up a little bit for those who don't know me, I was not looking to get into space when I got into space. It kind of snuck up on me and surprised me. So I spent about a dozen years at creative agencies and a 3-year stint at a Fortune 100 company in the financial sector. I then moved to Sydney and grew a fintech startup in APAC. And after that sold, I joined Invoice to Go. A lot of you probably know the invoicing and billing app. It was one of the first in the App Store. And we grew that and through a lot of things, content, community strategy, etc. A lot of brand marketing from my side, and they did a lot of great things with the product as well. And we just made upgrades everywhere, and we sold it to Bill.com. Then I helped a cybersecurity company called Telesign, who is a major competitor to Twilio. I rebranded them, built their first ever brand marketing strategy. We grew it an enormous pitch. And then I went to Leo Labs, which is a data provider. And I built their first ever comprehensive brand, first content program, first fully functioning marketing strategy, along with a lot of account-based marketing campaigns. So that is like my career in a nutshell. I am almost 40. I'll be turning 40 in less than 6 months. I highly recommend Botox. That is, my mom had good genes, but so thanks, Mom. But also, there's a lot of Botox in this face.
Which looks like you're not even 30. It looks like you're not even 30. So I was shocked.
So I actually cannot share the name of the company that I have just joined, and that is because it's still in stealth mode. This is a space adjacent company. So basically, it is a company that was founded by two ex-SpaceXers, and they had this brilliant idea on how to rapidly advance the way that machines are built, regardless of where those machines are going. So these two ex-SpaceXers got together, assembled a small team of the best and the brightest people in engineering, and design for hardware systems. So we've got people from SpaceX, Google, Uber, you name it. And we're reimagining the way that machines are designed, engineered, and operated. So if you can think about everywhere machines go, from satellites to operating room robotics to public transport, submersibles, everything in between, our goal is that we can make them safer, faster to market, easier to operate, more efficient, more affordable. And of course includes the aerospace industry there. And we're hoping that we can drastically improve all of our lives in that way. So
when you can talk about it, definitely come back on, because I'm working on a third book right now about the industries, and machine manufacturing and robotics are part of that. So yeah, definitely come back on when you can talk about it.
Soon. So, I can't say when, but soon.
One of the reasons why I wrote the first book that I wrote and have this podcast is to stress how important marketing is and the importance of having a marketing professional on your team. Many businesses don't really understand this, and marketing is usually the last one hired and the first one let go. But like I had Ivona Space Staffing on not too long ago, and one of the very first people that they hired was a marketing person, and they just expanded into the United States. So, marketing is what makes your company exist. So why would you take your bullhorn away? And so that's one of the reasons why, I do all this. So why should a marketing person be important on a company staff? Please do tell.
I would not just say a marketing person. I would say your first hire in marketing should actually be a very senior person that can help you drive company strategy full stop and can grow a team in the way that they deem appropriate for where you are. If you're hiring one person and you're hoping that they are going to help transform or grow your business on their own without any support, whether that is a budget for a lot of external support or internal support, you are short-sighted. It's not the way things are done. It's not the way things get done. The number one thing that I see, especially in the space industry, is space companies will hire like a junior, someone with like 5 years experience, and
Oh,
they'll
my
say, "Oh,
cousin
and we'd
knows
like you to do
Facebook.
marketing strategy and this yeah, we'd like you to do strategy and this and that." And the job description is like a CMO. I mean, you would really need decades of experience to be able to fulfill these requirements, but then they hire someone for like 80 grand a year, and they wonder why their marketing specialist isn't working out. It's like hiring a junior engineer just out of school and asking them to stand up a platform. Oh, and PS, on their own. So
Yes.
I see a lot of short-sighted. I think I see a lot of lack of respect for the profession. And I think the companies that thrive, they understand certain things that used to be considered soft. One of those things is user experience, for instance. Another is marketing and brand, right? So I would say you don't just need a marketing person, you need a marketing team.
Yeah, because there's so much that needs to be done. I mean, you have to have a
Mm-hmm.
writer, you have to have a videographer, a photographer in order to capture your story effectively. You need a team.
Right,
There's just too much that needs to
right.
be done.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. If you own a company, you don't just own that company, right? Regardless of what it is. Say it's a landscaping company. You don't just own a landscaping company, you also own a media company. Because the expectation now is that companies will not only do what they do well, but they'll be able to talk about it well. They will have some sort of presence in the digital world. And so this is especially if you're working in tech or space, an industry that is seen as growing and evolving and thriving and pushing new ideas. And you should have a forward thinking approach to marketing. And if you don't, then you're not investing in something that can greatly help your company and is actually essential to growing your company. So, um, I can't help those people. I can only help the people who get it.
And the actual marketing profession is a lot of science and a lot of art. There is, but there's
Mhm.
a lot of science behind it. And even the professionals that have years worth of experience, it's like trying to hit a moving target. Marketing has changed so much. I mean, just like we just had Chat GPT just change everything. You know, and people, as soon as you figure out where they are, they they don't want to be sold to, so they're like a flock of birds and they move. So you've got to make sure that you are developing a relationship that makes that those birds want to come to you.
The other thing that I'd say about that is people like to say marketing isn't just an art, it's a science. Sometimes for legitimacy's sake. And I think that's a little bit sad because they're thinking that by calling it a science as well, or calling out or reminding people, it'll be taken more seriously because it is a science. There should be deep reverence for the art of marketing as well. That
Yes.
intuition, that creative vision, that experience to understand intuitively what will resonate is exceptionally valuable. And if you're not willing to invest in that or trust someone who has that to help move your company forward in the way that they tell their story, go to market, strategize how they're going to reach the people that you want to reach, then I can't help you, right? It is a very valuable thing. It is a very valuable skill set, and we shouldn't have to say or remind people that it's a science as well in order for them to take marketing seriously. Just the art part of it is valuable to your business. The science makes it even more valuable.
Well, it's a storyteller, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
talented, multifaceted storyteller. So it's telling your story through
Yes,
pictures. It's telling your story
multifaceted.
through
Yes.
video, on podcasts, and so much more. So and marketing
Absolutely.
has changed, and I was really glad to hear that you had some agency work, because that's one of the big ways that marketing has changed recently, is that it used to be where there was agencies that you paid, and then they would blast out your commercials and your newsletters and place ads for you. But it doesn't really work that way as much as it used to. Agencies are still important and can get some things done, but the in-house talent is much. You need your hand on the pulse of what the company is doing in order to be able to tell the story effectively, and that's just really hard to do from the outside, especially if your connection with the company doesn't know how to do it. So having somebody that's a marketing professional, even when dealing with an agency, is important. Um, so we are talking about hiring a small team. And in my book on the end, I actually have a whole section on how to develop and hire your small team. So I want you to really talk about that, because that is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So building teams, it's and building healthy, happy teams. It's something that I'm very passionate about. There are a lot of miserable people in marketing, right? Because they are working at companies that don't respect or support them. So there are a couple of reasons that happens, and I've spent a lot of time studying and analyzing why that happens, so that I could make sure that I built teams that wanted to stick with me and the company in the long run, and were bringing their best to the table and happy in their work, right? Um, so, what I look for in people, first, I look for positivity, a passion for growth, or like a curiosity. I don't necessarily want someone who's only been in one industry, marketing. I really like the idea that someone has bounced around and learned different things and learned about different types of businesses. Honesty and integrity, empathy for each other, right? It's one thing for someone to turn on, kind of this face of, this good person face for their boss. But when I see them helping out each other, and I see team members really having empathy for each other, I really respect that. So in order for teams to be successful, I think that there's a few things that have to happen. First of all, whether it is an internal team or an external team of freelancers, there are all types of ways to bring marketing teams together for a company while you're growing that are responsible, right? Because the first thing you're going to think is, we are seed round, or we're round A, and we don't want to hire a bunch of people that might potentially have to get laid off if we, fail to grow in this way or secure that investment or whatever. So maybe you've got a combination of a couple full-time people and a couple freelancers, or any combination thereof. And if you hire that good marketing leader first, they'll know what to do, right? They'll come back with a recommendation, and they'll know what she or he needs to do.
And possibly get you that
So
investor you're looking at too, because
right,
it's a story.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
And marketing and brand messages absolutely factor into investor decisions, and I would say almost as much as revenue, market opportunity, and all of that other things, because people are emotional creatures, even people dealing with large sums of money, and they make gut decisions as well. So the first really important thing I would say is you need your C-suite to buy into, support, and internalize your marketing strategy. So in order for your team to be successful, your C-suite has to really, really evangelize your marketing strategy and show support for it vocally, right? If your C-suite is not wanting to pay attention, if they're not giving your marketing leader feedback, if they're like disengaged from conversations where you're sharing the marketing strategy, it's going to be really hard for your marketing team to thrive, because people pick up on that, right? Other people within the organization pick up on the respect that your marketing team is given and the excitement that your C-suite has for the marketing strategy, and they'll treat your marketing team differently. So you want to make
And
sure that
marketing is internal too. So marketing is internal too.
Right.
That bullhorn goes both ways. So it can generate
Absolutely.
excitement for the other people in your company, as well as create excitement outside of the company.
Right, absolutely. I mean, a, a good example is a rebrand, right? Every single time I've rebranded a company, it has created an energy inside that company. And it's easier to recruit, it's easier to retain, everybody's pumped, and it's not just the free t-shirts, it's the fact that it's a chance to get excited about what you do for the majority of your waking hours, right? So another thing is communicate wins weekly if you can. So weekly communication between the C-suite and the marketing leader, and then communication to the entire company on marketing team wins. You can communicate wins as a whole. You can call people out if you'd like to, and make sure that you're spreading credit around to who did work or who did something great, but making sure that you're communicating those wins out to the greater organization. Perspective. So you have to make sure that the company understands the value of all different types of marketing, and they're not putting undue importance on any one part without reason, right? So what I've seen is the pieces of marketing where there are quantifiable metrics that are really easy to understand. A lot of times, especially if the marketing leader is reporting into a CFO or more of a left brain thinker, those are the ones that will get attention. And the other types of marketing, the brand marketing, the content marketing that is more storytelling driven, or things like brand visuals, all that stuff, that will not get attention, because there's no magic number that you can pull immediately to prove its value. This is flawed. Your marketing strategy should have a healthy brand marketing strategy, a healthy growth marketing strategy, all of these bits and pieces, and a good marketing leader will help you create that perspective and understanding. And you have to make sure that your C-suite recognizes and appreciates that, right? Because that will help your marketing team thrive.
An example of this would be kind of like if you hire an engineer to build an engine, but you're only going to allow them to build an engine that's been tried before, that's been done before, and that has experience. You're going to want somebody that can build something that hasn't been built before. We're reaching for space. We're doing something different. So just like marketing, some of these things, they don't have a track record because they haven't existed. So, or haven't existed very long. Yeah. Hold on to your boosters. We will be right back with guest and marketing professional Nat Brown-Lennox after a brief message from our sponsors. Please like and subscribe to the Space Marketing Podcast so you don't miss a thing.
Your marketing team should really be thought as they should be thought of as a center of excellence, or a group of thought leaders as well, not just order takers. They're not the team that simply creates the deck so that the sales team can go out and succeed. They are the team that is fundamentally affecting the way that your company thrives and the forward trajectory that you're taking, right? So you have to they have to be thought of in that way and treated that way by the C-suite. The other piece to make a marketing team happy and keep them productive is respect for their time. I too often have seen scenarios where there is no process, and there's no process with working with marketing, or there's no process for selecting and prioritizing projects. And this is a recipe for disaster for the marketing team, because things will be sent to them at all hours, and they're typically the last stop for things like sales campaigns that are due, or RFPs, or any little tactic that you need. And sometimes it's due to other people's, lack of time management or busy schedules or whatever that is. And it just burns out your marketing team. So make sure you have a process in place. Your marketing leader is socializing that process, and you are following that process, and the C-suite themselves, as much as they can, are following that process. Because if the C-suiters aren't respecting their time, it's going to be really hard to get anybody else to.
And don't just change
So
something just because you're bored with it, or after somebody has built this intense document, don't sit there and rewrite it, because there's a lot that goes into building it, and
yeah,
there's a lot of thought that goes into what you're looking at. So
absolutely.
give your
Yeah.
input in the beginning, not at the end. The end is for all the cleanup and polishing. It's not for the chipping away in the building. So that
Yeah.
should be done way in advance as they start the project. And just don't change track just because, oh, let's try this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so sorry, I'm
Oh, I
speaking
thought,
from experience there.
no, it's fine. It's fine. Everybody's a marketer is the saying, right? Um, there's a couple things left a couple of thoughts that I want to leave you with on how to create a marketing, or at least for this question, on how to create a happy and healthy marketing team, that are really important. Back to that proper resourcing and budgeting. This is, the number one thing. You have to set expectations for what one or two or five people can actually get done in a day. So hiring one person and expecting them to stand up your social media strategy and segment your audience and create your customer personas and this and that. First of all, that's like hiring an aerospace engineer and asking them to now design a plane and a submersible and this and that. These are different specialties, but also that there aren't enough hours in the day. So you need to make sure that you have a marketing budget, that it's a fair marketing budget, and that you're allowing either hiring or resourcing in some other capacity, external, freelance, or whatever, so that you can augment the internal team members that you have. Then touch bases and feedback. Being responsive, giving clear feedback. If you say I don't like it, that doesn't help anybody. You
No.
need to say, here's what I'm thinking, and you also need to respect the marketing team's viewpoint on why they created it in the first place, and kind of work collaboratively with your marketing team in order to complete campaigns and tactics. And then the last thing that I'll say, because I do think that it's really important, and I've seen it do a lot of damage, is when you are hiring a marketing team, you're hiring a lot of creative people, right? And creative people particularly are susceptible to toxic work environments. So
Yes.
if you have even one toxic leader in your organization, the marketing team will be the first ones to feel it typically. There's a lot, if you for any of you that study Carl Jung and personality types, there are a lot of innocent child and wise old man personality types in marketing teams typically. And you guys can Google that and that kind of thing. I highly recommend taking a personality test, by the way. But toxic leaders, or leaders that manipulate or overly control and micromanage this and that, they will destroy your marketing team. They will typically even destroy your marketing leader. I just cannot say enough about the damage that they can do. So, for
Well,
many reasons.
and to put a picture to it, it's kind of like when you're a marketer and you're absorbing the outside world so that you know what resonates, you're opened up to those messages. And so it's almost like you're vulnerable, even more vulnerable to what comes at you, because that's what you're doing. You're taking what's around you and you're funneling it, and you're building something with that echo that is around you. So it's not like you can build these walls and to keep the world out. You're having to let the world in, and that's one of the reasons why creatives they just take it so much more and
They're
internalize it.
especially observant. Yeah, they're especially observant. And Paula Shear actually said it really well. She is one of the principals of Pentagram in New York City. And she was in a series called the Artist Series. It was by the late Hillman Curtis in 2005. And she actually said, I operate strongly with my instincts. My process in my profession is very intuitive to me. And then she like talks about how she drew the Citibank logo, the new one, on a napkin in the first like meeting with a client and walked out. And the reason she was able to do that is because of 34 years of experience and every movie she's ever watched and every book she's ever read and everything that's in her head. Because creative visionaries take in the world differently. So,
Yes.
working with toxic leaders or toxicity in a workplace can be exceptionally damaging. I've personally had it happen. I've had to take, months off after a job because I worked for a toxic leader, and I had to work through a lot of the trauma there in order to recover and be ready to get out there again. Right. And I know many others that have had this happen as well. So, my final tip for having a thriving and successful and productive marketing team is to make sure that you actually have a healthy workplace, full stop, and very, very supportive, healthy leaders running the company.
That's true. And the thing about like your rocket builders, your engineers, whoever's building whatever it is that your thing is, your widget, they're creative too. So what
Mm-hmm.
it's important that these lessons be to everybody that's in your team, not just the creatives,
Mm-hmm.
but especially the creatives. But you know, nobody wants to work in a toxic environment, and you're creating something that it, it's its own thing. So it's creating a business is creating something. So you
You're
know,
right. You're right. And I would say your marketing team for a toxic work environment or toxic leaders, your marketing team is like the canary in the coal mine.
right.
They will go down first. Your marketing leader will go down first. And if that's happening, or your marketing team, and if that's happening, something's up.
In the beginning, I said that marketing was everything, including your staff's mood, but especially for
Yep.
your marketing because they're the bullhorn. So if you make them miserable, what's their
Yes.
voice going to sound like?
Yeah.
And but if you're in a company and you have the janitor and he's grumpy and he talks with one person that changes their opinion about your company based off of their interaction with him, you know, that's part of your brand. So it's all of it. It's all of it. So make sure that all of your people are happy. So, well, we're going to switch gears real quick and we're going to talk about two of the subjects that are hot in the news right now: AI and
Yes.
threads. So, let's start with AI because I saw some experience in AI with you're on the board for Right Metrics, and that's part of their business services. So, but AI in marketing. Let's go there first.
Yeah. So I think AI is good for research. I do not think that AI will replace creatives, and that's not just hopeful thinking on my part. I We recently did a bunch of research for a brand that we're building, and it's good to gather a bunch of lists or background materials very quickly. But if you're thinking that you can replace your head of content or your editor-in-chief with a robot, think again. It's not going to happen anytime soon. It's like saying that designers are going to be replaced by Adobe Suite. It's a tool. It is not it's not going to happen. But it's every tool that we get makes it easier to do our jobs. So
And it's good to look backwards. AI can look to see what's been done, but looking forward, they can't do that.
mhm.
They can only look at what's historically been done. And there's some danger in using it for your content. And besides, every time I've used it, like you said, it's good for research, but when I see what it wrote when I asked it a question, I'm like, that's not what I meant at all. And so it's good for some things, but it will make life easier on a lot of fronts, just like it does in a robot or a factory. But it's and you got to be careful because there is some lawsuits going on right now where it has taken things that other people wrote and put it into its stuff, and there's some authors that are suing it right now. So
Yeah, I mean, in good
plagiarism
writing,
is still, yeah.
yeah, well, think about what makes something compelling to read, right? Or listen to, or whatever it is. There's a voice, there is a personality, there's a backstory. There are all of these other elements that make you tune in and actually want to pay attention and take some of your sweet time out of your day in order to dedicate your attention to this thing, right? That right now cannot be replicated. It's disjointed. It still sounds robotic. It's still sounds like a regurgitation of other people's material. So maybe in the future we'll be able to have more personality driven and more human feeling AI. But right now, I don't see it happening.
I listen to a lot of Audible books, and there's a couple of them
Mhm.
that, have had AI read for them, and it is getting really good. It really is, but there's
Mhm.
something missing, and you can tell when it's AI.
Yeah.
There's a
Mhm.
there's a bit of that humanity that we can't really put our finger on or replicate that is missing.
Yeah. I mean, for hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in tribes and we traveled in caves, and our survival was based on recognizing each other, right? Before the agrarian or agricultural revolution, rather. Um, and we are, as animals, deeply, deeply wired to recognize each other and notice if any little thing is off, right? And
Hmm.
so, you know, saying, okay, we're never going to know. It's going to take a pretty damn good deep fake and a pretty damn good piece of writing created by a robot for no one to pick up on it, right? Or for you not to get that little ick feeling where you're like, oh, this just doesn't seem exactly right, or it's not grabbing me, it's not catching my attention. Your intuition knows. So AI has a while to go before it's going to replace marketing teams or creatives.
But it certainly is useful in some areas. So, what are
Yes.
some of the ways where a marketing team, could use AI in their efforts?
I just think the research quotient. If you are looking for a suite of facts, or I was looking for a human need the other day. There are 6 human needs popularized by Tony Robbins, and I was writing an article around the time that ChatGPT came out, and I couldn't remember the names of books, all of the books that mention the human need, the 6 human needs rather, and asking ChatGPT that question, or give me X amount of words that rhyme with this, because I'm trying to come up with something clever, right? Like, so that those really simple research tasks that you might have handed to an assistant in the old days, it's nice to have AI help you with those things. But as far as completed projects and completed creative goes, I think it's got a long way to go before it can compete with human brain power.
It can help you get started. It
Mm-hmm.
definitely helps you
Yeah.
get started. It helps you build that structure, and will give you a base to, if you're like have writer's block or needs to say it in a certain way, it can be helpful. So, and it definitely saves time on some of the things that they do. Like, for example, one of my favorite tools right now is something called Memento, and it takes moments in a video and says, "Hey, this is a good moment." So instead of having to listen to it like 50 times to say, okay, which ones, what is that minute that is going to capture it all. It will help you, and it'll look for those things for you. So that is
Yeah,
useful.
that's interesting. I used to, in another life, I used to run a little video production agency on the side. And what makes a good moment in a video is really up to the director, and
Yes.
that is all based on personal voice and style. So that's another thing, like you can tell me what technically makes a good moment. Is the sound clear? Is the lighting good? Is everything balanced? Is the frame interesting? But you can't tell me what the tilt of the head says, right? A
Right.
person could tell me that because they can read other people and we're so in tune to connect with each other. But a robot can't tell me that right now.
They can only suggest. This might be.
Right.
Yes. So, all right. So we're going to flip to the next hot topic right now, and that's threads. So,
Yeah.
Twitter made a lot of people mad last week with some of the things that it was doing. And Meta took the advantage to release threads. And it was a very opportune time for them, I think. So, do you want to comment on the threads and the new platforms? Because T2 also launched this weekend, which is another Twitter too. And it was designed by some Twitter people that were let go. So,
Yeah, well, and
another reason
that's
to keep your people happy.
Yeah, that's an interesting story in and of itself, right? Elon, I believe, is suing or thinking about suing because Zuckerberg hired a bunch of ex-Twitter employees to build threads. Is that true? I feel like I heard that headline somewhere. And to that, I would say it's his fault. I mean, if you don't want really talented people going to other companies and building a competing product, then you should probably treat them better. I mean, people aren't expendable, right? So,
And what are they supposed to do? Go work for a hamburger
right,
place?
not support themselves. That's a fundamental lack of empathy and actual, reality right there. But yeah, I think as far as threads goes, it's interesting. I personally haven't gotten on it because I heard that there may be one technicality glitch where if you want to delete it, it deletes your Instagram profile as well. And my Instagram is private and it's very personal because I put all of the photos of my kids and stuff on there. And so I would really be upset. I think a lot of, at least OG millennials use Instagram as kind of like a photo diary. The ones, those of us who aren't making money off of the platform with a public persona, a lot of us use it just for to keep pictures of our families and kids and adventures or spouse or wedding or whatever it is. And so we'd be devastated if those things went down. And so I haven't gotten on Threads yet for that reason, but I will check it out.
It's very interesting, and I think that it's definitely going to hurt Twitter, but I think Twitter hurt Twitter. So, and speaking of which, there's T2 and Threads, they're not the only one. There's a bunch of other ones that are trying to do the same thing that Twitter is doing. So, which brings up another question is how do you prioritize your team's efforts with content development and for which platforms? Because I tell you, if you do a little bit on 100 platforms, you're not going to get anywhere. So, what's your suggestion on that?
Be cautious about the phrase "we need to be" because everyone's doing it. I think that a good content strategy should, just like any marketing strategy, should start with good customer research and industry research, and you should know where your customers are, what platforms bring them joy, where they love to go, and what their worldview is, right? And how those platforms fit into their worldview. And then you choose your platforms based on that. And you also want to make sure that the content that you're publishing and the way that you're publishing there's a familiarity, right? It looks and feels like other content on the platform in the way that it's structured, so that it's not jarring to your viewer. It needs to be unique and it's creative, but not be jarring to your viewer, or stand out in a way that's negative. Um, so, start with good customer research, see what you can see there, and then think about, okay, what are they using now? What are they most likely to use in the future? And create your content strategy.
And one piece of content is not going to work on everywhere. It's not, what you design for Facebook, it
Yeah,
may fall
it's
flat.
completely right. And I hate it when it's you do I'm a fan of repurposing content strategically, not repurposing and blasting it across every channel. What incentive does your customer have to follow you on multiple channels if you're just posting the same shit on every one? Think about it. Like, you're going to annoy them. It's going to get boring. They're going to be over it. So think about a way to customize it for that channel. Like, why would it be on Twitter? Why would it be on Instagram or on LinkedIn or on Medium? Like, what makes it unique for that platform? And then, publish that. Don't just like blast out the same video 6 places. It sucks. Think of
Social
it.
media is a conversation. So if you're having
Right.
the same conversation with everybody, it's going to come across, oh, I've heard that one before, or you've said that 100 times. If you meet somebody in a hallway and they start off with their spiel, it's not going to resonate there either. And so it's a conversation. So understand
It's not
who
like
you're
a
talking to.
microphone.
Yeah.
Right, you're not like shouting at people. Well, and
Right.
the thing, I mean, social media is interesting because it's useful not just on the acquisition side or the brand awareness side, but it's also useful on the customer retention side and satisfaction, because you can help customers understand how to use your product. You can add value. You can actually take a lot of workload off of your customer success team. It's really where customer success and your marketing team kind of marry efforts. It's a really interesting space, and you can actually grow your user base by growing a community that's adjacent. So it's get creative and really understand it. And if you don't understand it, that's okay. Hire someone that does. There are a lot of people
Right.
who are really passionate about it. So go, or even if you think you understand it, but you just don't have the time in the day to execute, go hire someone to execute or help you think about it and then execute, and then listen to them as well, right? Because you'll learn things along the way.
I'm going to flip it real quick. And what
Yeah.
advice would you have for marketing people who are working with startups? And I've been there. I started in an incubator, so there's a special way to deal with startups. And so,
Yeah.
what advice would you have for the marketing professionals?
Yeah. So I have worked at 10,000 person plus Fortune 100s. I've worked at, mature startups. I've worked at, like I am now, at even stealth stage companies. Make sure that you know what you're in for before you go to startup world. Make sure that you understand where where your startup is, what their goals are, um, how volatile the company is, right? Like, logistically speaking, don't throw everything away, right? If you have a family or whatever, make sure your spouse or partner has health insurance, for instance. Like, make sure that you're going to be okay and that you know what you're in for, right? Because it is a risk going into startup land. It's also exceptionally exciting and thrilling, and it gives you a chance to grow and learn at a rapid pitch. I recommend spending time in creative agencies first and trying to become the best in the world at what you do. And I don't say that lightly. Make sure that you are always learning and growing to the point where you feel like you could go head to head with anyone who does what you do, and you would be able to stand next to them, and you would be as knowledgeable and intuitive about what you do as they would be, right? then go build startups, because you're going to need to bring all of those skills to the table. It works a lot better if you have jumped around into different types of roles in creative agency land. So maybe you've spent a little bit of time as a copywriter and a little bit of time as a designer and a little bit of time as a strategist and blah, 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 like I did. Maybe you know, jumped around, and that way when you get into leadership positions, you understand what's involved. You know, for any type of company, you understand what's involved in each role, but also with startups, you understand, you know, a little bit about each thing so you can fill in or understand where you need to hire. Focus on action rather than perfection. Just do something. Don't talk about it forever. Do it, measure it, learn, and do it again better. Set clear boundaries and clear expectations. Do not let your work life take over your whole life, right? It's easy to do in startup land. I have, you know, it's still a job, right? And your job's important and it's your passion and it means a lot, but it should not be everything in your life. You need a break. You're going to need rest. These are big problems that you're trying to solve, and this is an intense job. So give yourself that time to rest. And make sure that you're setting boundaries. The other really frank piece of advice I have is to pay attention to the emotional maturity of the founders that you will be working for. Pay attention to the interview process, ask your network about them, gauge their emotional maturity. There is, in founder land, you know, founders become a leader with almost, you know, all of the power in the company, right? And Abraham Lincoln actually has this quote that says that nearly every man can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's power, give a man's integrity, give him power, or his character. If you want to test a man's character, give him power. And that's what happens in a founder-led business, right? One or two people end up having all of the power. So if you're, you know, in a worst case scenario, that one or two people, they become, you know, they only want yes people around them. They get rid of all the no people and they run the business into the ground, right? You don't want to be on that ship. But if you have an emotionally mature founder who is, you know, kind of self-aware and trusts others and has a team-first approach, then they can really build a thriving business, and you can be part of that. And that's so incredible. It's such an incredible feeling. So really pay attention to the emotional maturity of the founders, and that will be evident to you in the first 6 months. Sometimes right away, but definitely in the first 6 months. And then the last piece of advice I have is just to buckle up, because it is an incredibly intense experience, and you have to have the right disposition and know where, you know, kind of just, you need grit and resilience to be good.
And you have to love your hair on fire.
No, if you set boundaries, your hair shouldn't always be on fire. That's kind of my point. It's, you know, don't set the boundaries and the expectations and have a really strong strategy and get that support that we talked about earlier. And you won't feel like your hair is always on fire. Because if you do feel like your hair is on fire, it's not sustainable. You will burn out, or, you know, you will be pushed out, right? Because eventually you'll drop the ball in something and, you know, whatever. Do those things so that you don't feel like your hair is on fire, and you can do your best work and you can thrive.
And that's one of the, another thing is that, you know, make sure that you look at where the founder is worked before. How do they, you know, do they let their team do their jobs? Because one company that I saw that had a lot of hope that kind of imploded unexpectedly, you know, their marketing people, they had on the front line making rocket parts, and because there was a deadline, you know, are you letting your people do what they were hired to do? And, you know, it takes a little bit of research, but, you know, I found that little tidbit out from this particular company just in the stories that they're employees tell. So talk to the employees.
Well, and that's the thing is it's a lot of these, there are niches within each industry, right? And it's people talk,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they don't even need to say anything. A look will do it. There are lots of ways of communicating, right? So there's
Right.
so many reasons to be a good leader. Just because it makes you feel good, why not? But like also, I mean, um, create a healthy work environment, work on it, and make sure that you are creating a place where people can thrive.
And take those personality tests. Those personality tests are very important because sometimes there'll be a lot of miscommunication just because the person's a different personality type and you haven't learned how to work within that particular type. That doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make them a jerk. It just makes them work differently. So, understanding the different personality types is really important.
Yeah, I would recommend, highly, highly recommend Carl Jung's 12 Archetypes personality type. It is incredible. It is very helpful to know what motivates people and how they see themselves, right?
Right.
And then you understand, what's important to them, what's going to motivate them to do their best work, how to work with them, how to position things to them. It's really great, and it's eye-opening as well. And once you take it, I'm sure you'll start questioning yourself in the way that you view the world. Am I saying this
Yes.
because I want to be the hero, or am I saying it because it's real, right? Which is always healthy. It's always healthy to question yourself.
Just real quick on the hero comment that you just did. Um, make your audience, make your employees, make them the hero. The heroes are usually not educated. They're bumbling through things. They're looking for the solution. They feel bad about themselves. They have a quest. You're the guide. You're guiding your audience to the solution and making them the hero. So that's a, a tip in a story when you're doing your stories is make your audience the hero. All right, so last question of the day is what final thoughts do you want to leave the audience with today? What do you want them to mull around in their head as they're going throughout their day?
The last thing that I'll leave you with is that you can't build a thriving, growing brand unless you build a thriving company. So make sure that you're creating a great company to work for, a company that is sustainable and thoughtful, where people have each other's backs and are kind, and there isn't any toxicity, right? That should be the baseline for building a growing, thriving company, brand, and future.
I absolutely agree. A special thanks to Nat Brown-Lennox for sharing her journey to space. Be sure to check out her links listed in today's show notes. Please like and subscribe to the Space Marketing Podcast to help more people reach beyond the atmosphere. I hope that you have found this podcast useful for your journey as you reach for the stars.